Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Cathy McGrath, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. And today's issue of the Neepawa Banner and Press is Friday, December 6, 2024. And a good portion of the paper today is devoted to the Yellowhead Centre, a storied past and a troubled future by Ken Waddell. And featured on the front page, Neepawa's Yellowhead Centre was built in 1972. It is not owned or operated by the town of Neepawa, but rather the Neepawa and District Centennial Project Committee, Inc. Very few, if any, other communities in Manitoba use that ownership model. In case you didn't know, and judging from the attendance you didn't, the Yellowhead Centre recently held their annual general meeting, AGM. While it could be considered unusual for the AGM in a small town to have a large attendance, it is still a disappointment as the hall and arena complex are a major center of activity for Neepawa region, though they are not always treated that way. The AGM is open to any and all community members, but very few attend. This year's meeting was particularly dismal, with only a portion of the board members, around 6 out of 11, attending, and 2 members of the media, this writer being one of them, and no one from the public at large. Constitution is not followed. There may be some reasons the Yellowhead's AGM was poorly attended. One possibility is that the YHC Constitution is not being followed. The general meeting is supposed to have 14 days public notice provided for the date and location. That is supposed to include written notice to members, and the Constitution says an ad in a newspaper. This year, the notice was word of mouth and a poster at the post office. On those points alone, the Yellowhead Centre's annual general meeting for this year was not actually legal. As well, the Constitution calls for an 11-person board with 1 vote each. The board members are supposed to represent Neepawa District, but for many years now, the board members have been appointed reps from the various user groups, a process that hasn't worked all that well. User group reps tend to look after their own group's best interests, and it's a bonus when the reps look after the overall needs of the Yellowhead Centre. During the 2024 AGM, without proper notice, all the meeting or a notice of motion changed the Constitution and the number of votes a board member can have. For many years, membership, even though required by the Constitution, were not charged. Now a paid membership per family is required for user groups and on a sliding scale based on municipal contribution. Residents of Neepawa pay a lower membership fee than municipal residents. The fee is prorated according to the amount of municipal contribution. The town of Neepawa contributes the largest amount. Usually North Cypress Langford donates some funds, occasionally Arm of Rosedale donates, but no other municipalities contribute. Members from non-contributing RMs and towns are charged a higher fee. The 2023-24 YHC financial statement only shows about 2,700 in memberships, and that figure simply can't be correct. Either not all people paid a membership, or the membership money was misallocated in the books. Members are also required to provide a $200 check as a deposit or guarantee they will work as a volunteer on the Red Line Grill, the concession. But income from checks don't seem to appear in YHC financial statement, but may have been recorded in another category. I can't confirm, but have heard that the checks become stale dated and weren't cashed. To vote at an annual meeting, a person must have a membership, and that has not been enforced for years. The Constitution requires an audit, but that hasn't been done for years either. About 10 years ago, an audit was conducted at the suggestion or insistence of the town of Neepawa, but very few of the recommendations were adopted. The Yellowhead Centre loses money most years. This year, the loss was $61,067. In 2022-23, there was a small profit, $13,846, primarily due to the Viterra curling contribution. That, however, is a rotating provincial event that we have the honor of hosting, if we are lucky, every 5 or 10 years. Amortization, otherwise known as depreciation, should have been replaced with cash over the years and set aside into a reserve account. The YHC currently has no reserve account to replace a big cost item, such as a roof or the ice plant. For that matter, the town of Neepawa has no such account for the Yellowhead either. The financing and governance models for the YHC are both broken, and unless that changes, the facility will soon go broke and have to close. The board makeup is not working, and there have been 5 managers in the past 5 years. A new approach is urgently needed. And pictured here, the Yellowhead Centre, or the Yellowhead Hall, is one of the largest venues in southwestern Manitoba and has been used for weddings, trade shows, funerals, and many community events. The hall can seat almost 1,000 people for gathering and 700 for a meal. The commercial kitchen is in need of major upgrades. We are the exception, not the rule. It should be noted, for those who are unaware, that the town of Neepawa does not own the Yellowhead Centre. In most towns, the arena and sometimes the hall is owned by the town. That's believed to be the case in Minnedosa, Gladstone, Carberry, Rivers, Portage la Prairie, Verdun, and Killarney. Communities of varying size throughout western Manitoba, we are the exception, not the rule. The town of Neepawa gives an annual grant to the Yellowhead Centre. It used to be $65,000, but in the 23-24 YHC year-end statement, it shows at $97,500. That said, the grant has been in that range for a few years now. At 2020 prices, $100,000 is now only worth about $85,000. Down the road, about 30 miles in the town of Carberry, financial statements show a markedly different picture. The Carberry 2024 financial plan shows $140,000 in capital grant contribution, of which $60,000 goes towards a foundation fund set up for the new facility, and $80,000 goes towards annual capital improvements. In addition, there is an annual operations grant of $120,775 to go towards heat, hydro, utilities, and part-time wages. As well, the town of Carberry pays all the other wages at the community centre. That means the Carberry is putting about $400,000 into the community centre, and Neepawa is putting in $97,500. That explains a big part of the Yellowhead Centre's problem. If the difference in town funding, Neepawa versus Carberry, has been an average of $250,000 over the past 10 years, the Yellowhead Centre has been shortchanged by the town of Neepawa by $2.5 million. If the town owned the Yellowhead, it would cost the town a lot more money than the $100,000 now being put in annually. What needs to happen at the Yellowhead Centre? There are several things that must be done for the best interests of the Yellowhead Centre and the community at large. The Yellowhead Centre has to repair on an ongoing basis, renovate on an ongoing basis, and someday replace the facility. The YHC needs to follow their constitution and have the board properly elected and run at a profit, or turn the facility over to the town of Neepawa. The latter may be the best solution. A new facility could cost $25 million, and since Neepawa is already considering a major tax hike to fix roads, there will likely be no appetite among the taxpayers to pay for a new arena or hall, too. Whether one run by YHC board or by the town of Neepawa, the YHC needs a skilled and experienced facility manager who can bring in more events. With the opening of the new motel, this task might become a bit more realistic. In 2018, a recreation master report was paid for by the province of Manitoba on behalf of the town of Neepawa, the municipality of North Cypress-Langford, and the RM of Rosedale. It called for many things to happen, but one was increased financial support by the town and RMs for the YHC. Nothing has happened on that issue, and given the past reluctance by surrounding RMs, it's not likely to happen. Membership fees may have to go up, and that will be unwelcome news to families. And full disclosure, from Ken Waddell, I served twice as mayor of Neepawa and as YHC board member and a few years as chair. I am the first to admit that I have been part of the problem. That said, the problems still loom large, and I hope that the above history and information will generate some change. If change doesn't come, the Yellowhead Centre may not survive more than a couple more years. The Yellowhead Centre was built in 1972 by the Neepawa and District Centennial Project Committee, Inc. The hall portion is a repurposed warehouse from the former salt plant, built in 1943. The waiting room was made in part from the actual salt plant and partly new construction. The arena was constructed from a mix of new and used material in 1972. That said, an engineering report requested by the town of Neepawa about 10 years ago said the structure was basically sound but needed annual maintenance. Some structural changes were recommended, but only 2 small cosmetic changes were made. And the Yellowhead problems are not new. Neglect is taking its toll. And this note from the publisher: in the process of putting together this article on the Yellowhead Centre, I spoke with Owen Devereaux, who has been a reporter for the Banner and Press for 10 years and a member of the media throughout Manitoba for over 2 decades. Owen mentioned to me a presentation he had made to the Neepawa Town Council back in 2016 on this very subject. He later turned that presentation into an editorial, which was published in March of 2016. After looking up the piece, I decided to republish a portion of it this week. While some of the points made in this 2016 presentation have been resolved in the 8 years in between, the basis of the request is still, unfortunately, valid to this day. Good evening, Council. I am here to formally request Neepawa Town Council set aside $100,000 a year over the next 5 years in its budget to aid the Yellowhead Centre in much-needed structural upgrades. As the Council is well aware, the Board of Directors for the Yellowhead Centre has passed a motion to implement a revised capital plan, which may include spending from part of a pre-approved line of credit. They're also actively pursuing several government grant opportunities which may be available. The board has decided that it's time to move on this upgrade effort, as significant capital improvements have not been made for a number of years. The amount of money brought in by the wide array of activities that go on at the Yellowhead Centre is enough to maintain the status quo. But the fact is, if any business simply maintains status quo, then it's not moving forward. And if it's not moving forward, it's dying. The Yellowhead Arena and Hall are a significant leisure and recreational facility in our community. When municipal, provincial, and federal elections are being held, those ballots are not being marked next to the diving board at the town swimming pool. When wedding socials and receptions are taking place, they're not occurring at the third hole of the Frisbee golf course. And when about 60 Bantam hockey players and over 100 parents and coaches arrived in Neepawa for 2 days this past weekend for the Provincial Bantam Championship, those games were not played at the Flats. All of that occurred at the Yellowhead. Now, I am well aware that exploration is underway for the recreational needs of the community. The meeting held in late November talked about the long-term recreational needs of the community. The consensus among those gathered was the need for a new multi-use facility with a strong emphasis on some multi-purpose aspects. Something like that sounds great, but something like that sounds expensive. The Storied Centre in Portage la Prairie cost $48 million. Tundra Oil and Gas Place in Verdon was $18 million. It was $14 million for the Shamrock Centre in Killarney. Dauphin's Credit Union Centre was just under $9 million, and Rivers cut a check for $7 million. In fact, the cheapest price tag I could find for any type of project of this magnitude is $2.1 million for the Moosomin Communiplex and Convention Centre. Now, with all due respect to Neepawa Town Council and what it's trying to pursue, there are very few in this town that believe you could ever cut that type of check for a new facility. I am also well aware that the town of Neepawa is in a very enviable position, as it doesn't not own or operate the arena or a community hall. On an annual basis, council contributes between $70,000 to $75,000 to the facility to assist with its basic operation. Though that sounds like a large number compared to the bills being paid by other communities, it's relatively small. That money helps keep the doors open, but that's it. I believe that an additional contribution by the town of Neepawa could extend the lifespan of the Yellowhead Centre, while also allowing town council to put its resources towards other pressing needs. Council has already committed to the fire hall, which everyone within the community is very happy to see. There is also the need for a new hospital. Water and sewer for the CN property will not be cheap. There are several big-ticket items that need to be looked after, so I can understand if a shiny new hockey barn is not at the top of the list. But at the same time, I hope the council understands that the arena and hall are important keystones of this community. If they are left in their current status quo, their lifespan will end much sooner than you think, and then the need for that new structure will fall directly onto your shoulders. Council, you have a choice. Pay a little now or pay it all later. An editor's note, some of the issues and projects mentioned in this presentation, such as the Fire Hall Hospital and CN property, have been addressed since 2016. The majority related to the Yellowhead Centre, however, have not. And moving on, Emma Peterson to perform in Neepawa. Another award-winning performer takes the Kaleidoscope Concert Series stage on Saturday, December 14th at 7:30 p.m. Emma Peterson is one of Manitoba's most promising young country stars. She is a 5-time Manitoba Country Music Award winner, most recently in 2023 for Female Artist of the Year. Emma's powerful voice and relatable stories and lyrics, along with the high-energy performance of her 3-piece band, will make this a night to remember. Emma and her band will perform at Arts Forward on Saturday, December 14th at 7:30 p.m. Beverages will be available for purchase. Tickets are $20 for adults and may be purchased in advance at Arts Forward, online at Eventbrite, or at the door. Tickets for students under 18 are $5 and are only available at the door. Looking for a last-minute plan for a Christmas party? This concert will be a crowd pleaser and the perfect holiday event for your group. The last Kaleidoscope concert was a sellout, so don't wait. Get your tickets now for Emma Peterson. Need a ride to and from the concert? Why not book a seat on the handy van? For just $20, you will be picked up at your door and taken to the concert, then delivered safely home again at the end of the evening. Call Justin at 204-841-4419, no later than 5 p.m. on Thursday, December 10th to book your ride. This event is made possible by the generous sponsorship of the Neepawa Gladstone Co-op, as well as a grant from the Manitoba Arts Council. And Right in the Center by Ken Waddell. I think I'm done with Canada Post. On Sunday, in a press release, Canada Post said they presented the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, CUPW, with a new proposal. CUPW covers very few postal workers in rural Western Manitoba. Most local post offices are covered by postmasters who are members of Canadian Association of Postmasters. They are not on strike, but either CUPW or Canada Post have basically shut the post office down. Even non-striking post offices are not allowed to receive local mail. Even if you want to send someone a check to pay a bill, Canada Post is forbidding it. Now, even local newspapers are being shut out by Canada Post. Ironically, Canada Post also said, "We understand the impact CUPW's national strike is having on your business, our employees, and so many Canadians." Canada Post remains committed to negotiating new collective agreements that will provide the certainty everyone is looking for. Canada Post added, We know you need certainty at this critical time of year, and the union's national strike continues to impact your business. We are committed to providing you with timely updates and the details you need to make informed decisions. Well, I have news for Canada Post. This isn't our first rodeo. In fact, this is the 7th Canada Post strike we have been through in 35 years of publishing. Over the years, because of strikes and very poor service from the non-local people, we have taken more and more of our business away from Canada Post. We have been served very well by local post offices, but when we realized a few years back that papers take up to a week to get from town to town due to delays and backlogs in Brand and Dauphin or Winnipeg, we started pulling out of Canada Post. Our family papers used to be one of Canada Post's largest southwestern Manitoba's customer. When we pulled out, we didn't get so much as a phone call. Not surprised, though. I only phoned Canada Post 3 or 4 times a year, but they didn't even return those calls. I am so done with Canada Post rules, delays, and their ignoring customers' needs. This strike, like all the other strikes, makes for a huge delay in the cash flow for small businesses' cash flow. CUPW doesn't care much about their customers, and neither does the corporate level of Canada Post. The local postmasters are not pleased as they are being forced to refuse mail. Now, even local papers, even Christmas cards are being turned back at local post offices due to Canada Post's new-found rules. Fortunately for our papers, we only use Canada Post for 3 locations, but that is ending. As of this week, none of our 3 papers, the Neepawa Banner and Press, Rivers Banner, nor the Verdant Empire Advance, will be handled through Canada Post. I especially want to thank the staff at Rivers Post Office, Alonza, and Silver Ridge for treating us so well, but we are done with Canada Post. I can't even see how Canada Post can keep going and pretend to be serving the public. In last week's column, I wrote about the annual losses and losses and the general incompetence at the corporate level. In their press release, they talk about providing certainty to our customers. Canada Post has certainly provided certainty to this newspaper company. We are pretty certain we won't ever again trust our fate to Canada Post. But I am not going to risk being bucked off again. And a disclaimer, the views expressed in this column are the writer's personal views and are not to be taken as being the view of the newspaper staff. And Home Buddies by Rita Friesen. Bathroom reading. It is with certainty that I can say I am not the only one to have reading material in the bathroom. It used to be the Reader's Digest, the articles of the perfect length of reading time, or a word puzzle book, or a proper book. My current reading is daily reflections on the life of a saint. Some days I learn about 3 or 4, and some days are dedicated to one. Knowing that I have a fascination with saints, perhaps because I would love to be one, a close friend found a copy of Lives of the Saints by Richard P. McBrien, published in 2001. It contains the life stories of more recent saints, like Mother Teresa, 1910 to 1997, and Helder Camara, 1909 to 1999. Pullman, a 5th century Egyptian abbot, was known for his pithy sayings. One that is recorded: silence is no virtue when the charity demands speech. Charity meaning the love of and for God and all mankind. That reminded me of a quote that Ed used when required. They say silence is golden. Sometimes it's chicken. Same message with different wording. In reality, there is a time to be silent. There is also a time to speak, and may we have the wisdom to know the difference. It's too easy to sit in silence when the casual conversation turns to gossip and possibly slander. To take a stand for kindness and honesty often comes at a cost. Helder Camara was the Archbishop of Olinda and Recife, Brazil. He insisted that private charity towards the poor, while important in itself, fails to address the systemic causes of poverty. Camara advocated for such fundamental social changes as land redistribution and wider access to education. For these views, he was denounced and received death threats. His response: when I fed the poor, they called me a saint. When I asked why are they poor, they called me a communist. The courage to speak the truth, address injustice, and work for mercy can be a dangerous journey. The stories of the saints intrigue me. Some heard the call to join a nunnery or a monastery early in their life. Some, as orphans, were cared for by monks or nuns and chose to stay for their lifetime. Some declared saints were married couples and after having several children, chose to live a celibate life, dedicating their time and energy and resources to doing good for God. Some were prayed into a holy life by a devout mother. There are patron saints for groups and causes, from anesthetists and arthritis to the homeless and the homemakers, to yachtsmen and youth, and everything in between. The average person knows that Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of all creatures. Joseph is the patron saint of carpenters, and Andrew and Peter protect the fishermen. Those stories have found a place in history. Research shows that Saint Rita was canonized in 1900 by Pope Leo XIII. She is the patron saint of impossible causes: sterility, abuse victims, loneliness, marriage difficulties, parenthood, widows, the sick, bodily ills, and wounds. Huge responsibility, but I can dream. And Faithfully Yours by Neil Stroshine. Back to Where It All Began, Part 2. When viewed from satellites positioned high above the Earth, the Sea of Galilee looks like a calm body of water, but can also produce some very violent storms. They are most likely to come after a sudden temperature drop on land. The cold, dry air combines with the warm, moist air above the lake's surface to trigger violent storms. That is what happened one night as Jesus and his disciples were crossing the lake in a small boat. The disciples may have been intrigued by how quickly the storm came up, but they were not surprised by its severity, nor were they unaware of the danger that it put them in. The winds were strong, the waves were high, lightning bolts lit up the sky, and the thunder crashing overhead was loud enough to awaken the heaviest sleeper. But in this case, it didn't. To everyone's amazement, Jesus was sound asleep in the back of the boat. This was unacceptable, so one of the disciples woke Jesus and said, "Look, we are in the middle of this storm. We don't know how precisely where we are. Our boat is still above water, but we also have had a lot of water in our boat. We need all hands on deck. Those who can row, grab an oar and row. Those who can't row, grab a bucket and bail. We have to work together until we can get this boat to shore." Jesus showed no sign of panic. He simply got up and looked out at the raging water and said, "Okay, that's enough." Well, not really. What he actually said was, "Peace, be still." The historian of the day tells us that the wind stopped immediately. The clouds vanished, the surface of the lake became smooth as a sheet of glass, and the boat grounded itself on the beach. They were safe. They were alive. They were home. In the closing verse of Psalm 4, David writes, "I will lie down and sleep in peace, for you alone, O Lord, make me lie down in safety." David knew how it felt to live in a world that was filled with chaos and uncertainty. He governed ancient Israel for 40 years. There was hardly a day in all that time when someone, somewhere, wasn't hatching a plot to attack him and overthrow his kingdom. There were days when David felt like the men in the boat with Jesus, but he could still lay down at night and have a good sleep. Jesus lived in a similar world. His most powerful foe, the devil, Satan, had a simple strategy. He corrupted the people around Jesus. He got them to argue with Jesus when he was teaching the people, attack Jesus' character when he wasn't around to defend himself, and ultimately devise, plan, and carry out a plot to have him put to death. But Jesus never panicked. Like David, he could sleep in peace in the middle of a violent storm, because his heavenly Father was watching over him and keeping him safe. Thanks to our faith in Jesus Christ, God's Spirit lives with us. It's the same Spirit that lived and worked through Jesus Christ while he was on earth. St. Paul, Colossians 3:15, urges us to let the Spirit fill us with Christ's peace so that, like him, we will be able to face any uncertainties knowing that God is with us and protecting us. I pray that we will all follow Paul's instructions, especially during this Christmas season. And Faith and Family by Tara Kaunhofen. We were in a rush, as per usual, running to and fro and from one kid's activities to another, grocery shopping, essentials, fuel, church, all the things. Please don't get me wrong, we love our kids' activities and being present for them, but sometimes in the rush to pack a diaper bag, 4 kids in the car, snacks, equipment, etc., you sometimes miss opportunities for wonder and magic. So this particular morning, I was rushing and loudly wrangling kids. Parents, you know what I'm talking about. sounding off names and items we needed to be sure they didn't get forgotten, and already 5 minutes behind schedule. A miracle gift. When I looked up beside my head, I stopped in my tracks and stood completely still for a moment in awe. I turned around and called my older kids over to see what had caused me to pause on such a busy morning. A spider web, perfectly, uniquely, intricately formed and covered in the most unbelievable, perfect, thick layer of hoarfrost. Each strand that had been woven with care was intact and sparkling in the sun's bright rays. So we stood in awe and wonder at the miracle gift that God gave us that morning. A small but impactful reminder that there is wonder all around us if we only take the time to slow down and see it. I was convinced in that moment to teach our boys to recognize the importance of slowing down, so they have a shot at recognizing the wonder moments in their own lives and don't rush by them despite the busy and the rush. Find the magic. So now, even though we still are busy and often on the run, doing a head count in the car, rambling off lists to each other to make sure we have everything, hauling equipment, a bag of snow gear always, updating calendars daily, we now take time to stop and observe the wonder and magic around us. The ice crystals falling in the wind that make it seem like air sparkles. The thick, heavy hoarfrost after a foggy night that hangs and holds on to the trees. The nights where the stars are so bright and clear it looks like you could reach out and touch them. Looking at the Christmas tree from underneath and looking up into the lights and branches. And for my husband and I, the most amazing magic is the wonder in my boys' eyes when they see these things. And that brings the wonder back for us too. I promise you that if you take the time to stop and show them, your heart will spark again too. So be intentional about slowing down this Christmas. Embrace the wonder. Take time to find the magic. And from the BP archives, the Neepawa Lionels. Neepawa Lionel President Sylvia Johnson Left presented a cassette player to Jean Forsman, head librarian at the Neepawa branch of the Western Manitoba Regional Library, in 1980. The photo was dated May 8th of that year and appeared in the Neepawa Press. The cassette player was available to the visually impaired for use with talking books stocked by the library. No one had borrowed it at the time of the press feature, but it was able to be borrowed from the library for a deposit fee. And we move on to thumbs up and thumbs down. Thumbs up to all the Austin residents that have set up brilliant displays of colorful Christmas lights. They make the town so welcoming. Also, the Manitoba Agricultural Museum that has lit up the pioneering village and provide horse-drawn sleigh rides from Robert Smith and Edmonds. And thumbs down to the federal Liberal government and their NDP supporters for passing the bill, the Tax Break for All Canadians Act, for 2 months beginning December 14th. It's bad policy on so many fronts, as it is the poorer employees earning less than $40,000 and those on fixed incomes that need support for necessities, rather than this act that favors the big spenders. Again, Robert Smith. And we live on the corner of Jordan Street and PTH 260, 60 feet from a junkyard. For 2 years, a light shone on our house, just as bright as a vehicle with bright lights coming at you. After much complaining, Westlake Gladstone hired a bylaw inspector. He arrived at 6 a.m. last fall. That very afternoon, the light was redirected. Thank you, Council, from Murray and Toniak from Plumas. And Your Listening Ear by Delcy Martin. I am amazed by parenting. I am amazed by parenting. I am amazed how every day a new adventure in our adult world, and how in the mind of a child they can create the most rich, detailed adventures to go on. I'm amazed by all the firsts. The first time they speak, the first time they try a new food, or the first time they go to school, to see the look of wonder in their eyes as they see the world for the first time. I'm amazed at the ordinary moments, like watching your child relax with their favorite book, and how those small, ordinary moments can fill your heart with so much peace. I'm amazed how our children can help us to see the world in a new way, to appreciate the colors of a rainbow, to really listen to the sound of the crickets, or have fun playing with bubbles. I'm amazed by the deep and loving connections that they bring to us, how genuine a hug and a kiss can be, or how that goodbye for the day can feel like it would be forever. I'm amazed by the legacy that having kids leaves, the connection to generations of the past and what future generations could be. I'm also amazed by how hard parenting can be. Those sleepless nights when your littles need the comfort of you and you alone. It feels like every decision you make as a parent is a big one, and that there is no right answers. I'm amazed by the balancing act that parents have to do every day, balancing your own personal identity, your own goals and needs with the needs of this little being when every fiber of your being screams to attend to them first. I'm amazed at how every day your patience is tested, and then it's tested again, and then again, until you can feel you have nothing left to give. And then somehow you find more. I'm amazed at how parenting can bring out the big emotions in all of us, and how sometimes those big emotions can result in the deepest connection. I'm amazed and left in awe of what our children can teach us, and how no matter how chaotic life seems, we can always find love. As amazing as parenting is, it's also amazingly hard if you are struggling right now. Know that you aren't alone. You are part of an exclusive club of other parents who are just trying to make it through the day. It's hard, but it's worth it. It's worth it to know that a part of you will live on. It's worth it for those moments leave you speechless. It's worth it to see the pure love that children show the world. And it's worth it to know that every day you are making a difference in the life of another human being. And the Palliative Care Program recognized at Appreciation Luncheon. And pictured, members of the Neepawa United Anglican Shared Ministry, pictured at the top, welcomed volunteers and board members from the Neepawa District Palliative Care Program for Appreciation Lunch on December 2nd. A portion of the volunteers and board members can be seen above. Left. In addition to the food, there was live music played by local musician Blair Chapman, pictured right. The Neepawa District Palliative Care Program has been supporting those approaching the final stage of their life and their families since 1998. On Monday, December 2nd, the volunteers of the program were recognized at an appreciation luncheon at the hall of the Neepawa United Anglican Shared Ministry. The luncheon was sponsored by the Steen family, who greatly appreciated the support provided by Mary Ellen Clark and the palliative care volunteers when their mother, Betty Steen of Carberry, was ill and passed away at Yellowhead Centre. Reverend Shad McCharles offered gratitude for the compassionate ministering of the volunteers, describing them as angels in disguise. Noting that there was no better way to honor their work than to break bread together, he invited everyone to the buffet where he served up his now famous borscht alongside other soups, sandwiches, and delicacies. Blair Chapman provided the perfect background music over which volunteers and board members met and mingled. Palliative care volunteers offer support for the person who is approaching the final stage of their life, and also for the people around the bed. Small acts of kindness, a gentle word, and a few hours of respite can be comforting to those navigating a loss. The volunteers recognize that grief starts long before a loved one dies, and are prepared to provide support and make room for pain and grief. The Palliative Care Program encourages you to honor the memory of a loved one this holiday season by making a $5 contribution to the memory tree located at Mountain Avenue and Davidson Street in Neepawa. Contributions can be made at Neepawa Hospital, Home Hardware, Harris Pharmacy, Super Thrifty Pharmacy, the Mill Lifestyle Store, and the Neepawa Banner and Press. The next time you pass the memory tree, take a moment to pause, reflect, and honor the memory of your loved one. And Minnedosa Bowl youth move on to nationals, and pictured from left to right are Minnedosa youth bowlers Douglas Delgarno, Owen Robinson, and Cadence Madden. 3 youth bowlers, Douglas Delgarno, Owen Robinson, and Cadence Madden, along with 5 others from the Minnedosa Bowl Youth Bowling Program, participated in the Manitoba Provincial Singles Tournament held in Winnipeg at St. James Lanes on Saturday, November 23rd. Delgarno, from the senior division in the pins over average event, was awarded first place. His total pin count was 250 pins over his average. Robinson was awarded first place in the bantam division of the scratch event with a final score of 710 pins. Madden was awarded first place in the senior division of the scratch event, holding a final score of 1,125 pins. Both Robinson and Madden will be representing Manitoba at the Youth National in Edmonton, Alberta on May 2025. Minnedosa Bowl stated, "To all those youth who have participated, great bowling, and congratulations to all the winners." And The Path of Desire by Joel Asselstein, the Neepawa Banner and Press, and pictured. The above is one example of a desire path. This desire path is located at the University of Manitoba. In town planning, a desire path refers to an informal pathway created by the repeated foot traffic of pedestrians, cyclists, or animals. These paths often emerge when established routes, like sidewalks or paved paths, do not align with the most convenient or desired routes for users. Essentially, desired path represents the shortest or easiest routes that people choose to take, often cutting through grass, dirt, or other surfaces where no formal path exists. Desire paths can be seen as highlighting how people navigate their environments based on their needs rather than the designs imposed by planners. They can provide valuable insights into how public spaces are used and can inform better town design by showing where improvements might be needed. So, calling all readers, have you noticed any desire paths in your town? We'd love to see how residents are navigating around. If you spotted any informal trails or shortcuts that people frequently use, please share your photos with us. Your contributions can help highlight your community's needs in town planning. The Neepawa Banner and Press can be reached by phone via 204-476-3401 or by dropping into the office at 423 Mountain Avenue. News items can also be emailed via news@neepawabanner.com. And moving on to sports. The Neepawa Farmers fall to Rivers Jets, results from around the Tiger Hills Hockey Lead by Owen Devereaux. And pictured, the Rivers Jets jumped out to an early lead and then were able to stifle any of Neepawa's efforts at a comeback on the way to a 7-2 win at the Yellowhead Centre on December 1st. A pair of goals from Riley Shamray paired with a 4-point effort from Josh Elms was more than enough for Rivers Jets as they claimed a 7-2 win over the Neepawa Farmers on Sunday, December 1st. The win kept Rivers perfect for the year as they have improved their record to 6-0-0 on the season. Ryder Richmond, Riley Bowles, Jobin Smith, and Luke DeCorby also scored for the Jets, while Garrett Rempel and Kyle McDonald scored a pair for the Farmers. This recent loss dropped Neepawa's record to 2-3-1 and had them 4 points back of Minnedosa for third place in the East Division. Neepawa's next game will be on the road against Killarney on Friday, December 6th. The Farmers will be back home for the game versus the Boissevain Border Kings on Saturday, December 14th. Opening face-off is scheduled for 7:30 p.m. And Minnedosa win over Deloraine. The Minnedosa Bombers improved their record to 4-1-1 with a 5-2 win over Deloraine Royals. It was a total team effort for Minnedosa as 5 different players scored for the Bombers. Shane Jury, Matt Saylor, Ricky Kowalik, Micah Croker, and Logan Robinson collected their goals, with Jury and Saylor also adding a pair of assists for the evening. With the win, Minnedosa continued to keep pace with Rivers, 6-0-0, and Killarney, 5-0-1, in the Tiger Hills Hockey League's highly competitive East Division. And Carberry beaten by Melita. It was another night of disappointment for the Carberry Plainsmen as they lost 7-4 to the Melita Bisons on November 30th. Landon Desjardins, Tavish Quinn, and Brady Laycock scored for Carberry in the second period, while Jaron Waldner contributed one more in the third. The loss dropped Carberry to 1-5-0. And the Titans lose the second straight to Winnipeg by Owen Devereaux. At the end of MJHL's regular season, it's these types of games that the Neepawa Titans could look back upon and say to themselves, if only. Despite registering 50 shots on goal, the Titans were once again upset by the Winnipeg Freeze, falling 2-1 on Friday, November 29th at the Hockey for All Centre. It was the second time in less than a week that Neepawa has lost to the Freeze, who have only 4 wins in total on the year. For the second consecutive time, it was also an outstanding performance from Winnipeg goaltender Braxton Bredeny, who stymied any chances for the Titans to pick up the victory. Bredeny has made a combined 99 saves versus Neepawa in those 2 wins. Cooper Kasprick earned the only goal for Neepawa in the second game, collecting his 4th of the season with just 1 minute 12 remaining in regulation. With the recent defeats to Winnipeg, the Neepawa Titans have fallen to 13-11-1-1 on the season. The team is currently 3 points back of Northern Manitoba Blizzard for the second place in MJHL's West Division. The Titans will need to keep a close eye on those chasing them, however, as the recent performance by the Verdun Oil Capitals has them only 6 points behind Neepawa. The Titans play a pair of games on the road this week. First, they were in Portage La Prairie on Wednesday, December 4th, to take on the Terriers. That game was completed just after the Banner and Press publication deadline. The very next night, Thursday, December 5th, Neepawa is in Verdun to challenge the Oil Caps. The next home game at the Yellowhead Centre is set for Saturday, December 7th, against the Waywaysik Wolverines, with a scheduled 7:30 p.m. start time. And a letter. Canada Post strike costs Canadian small businesses $76 million per day. Excuse me. The Canada Post strike, now 2 weeks in, has cost the small and medium-sized business sector at least $765 million, or $76.6 million each business day. At this rate, if the strike is not immediately resolved, it will have cost the sector over $1 billion as of Wednesday, warns the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. It's not the Grinch who is about to steal Christmas. It's Ottawa sitting idly on the sidelines while small businesses are losing crucial revenue and sales due to circumstances outside of their control. The Labour Minister recently said mediation talks have been suspended because the two parties remain too far apart to reach a deal, and that a long Labour conflict is a possibility. But he is the only one who has the power to put an end to this. The ongoing strike has negatively impacted 3/4 of small businesses, said Brianna Solberg, the CFIB Director of Provincial Affairs. Among those, 41% reported cost impacts totaling around $2,000 in lost orders, more expensive delivery alternatives, late payments, and the inability to promote their business at a crucial time of year. Overall, nearly 3/4 of small business owners want the government to introduce back-to-work legislation, said Solberg. Here's what some small businesses have told CFIB about the impact the strike is causing them. A small firm in Saskatchewan said most of their clients pay by check, so their cash flow has been cut in half at least. They worry about their ability to make upcoming bill payments. For a consulting firm in Ontario, there is no shipping alternative without giving big discounts for clients, forcing the company to pay for all the extra shipping costs. A retail business in Manitoba said they cannot send their newsletters to customers to promote their holiday sales. They estimate they are losing around $3,000 a day as the strike drags on. CFIB is urging Ottawa to immediately intervene and impose binding arbitration or introduce back-to-work legislation to salvage some of the critical holiday shopping season. Many small firms will have already missed out on the most important sales weekend of the year, Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and Cyber Monday. If the strike isn't settled this week, Canada Post will not be a player for the entire holiday season, given the backlog of packages it will have to sort through coming out of this, Solberg concluded. And the Neepawa Curling Club is hosting a regional qualifier. 10 teams from around the Westman region will compete at Neepawa Curling Club this weekend, hoping to earn a spot at the Viterra Men's Provincial Curling Championship. That event will take place in February in Portage La Prairie by Owen Devereaux. Neepawa is going to be a curling hotspot this weekend as it is hosting the Viterra Men's West 1 Regional Qualifier. In total, 10 teams from across Manitoba will be competing at the event, with 4 of those earning a chance to play in the provincial championship set for Portage La Prairie in early February. At last year's regionals, 2 teams skipped by Jeff Stewart of Gladstone and Greg Todorock Dauphin qualified for the provincials out of the West 1 bracket. Those two clubs are back again this year and will be challenged by 8 other teams from around the region, including Keith Badcock from Neepawa, Matthew Kabaki Neepawa, Sean Boyle Neepawa, Justin Anderson Arden, Kyle Forsyth Dauphin, Travis Gregory Hamiota, Butch Moak Minnedosa, and Brian Preston Yorkton. The regional qualifier will feature a double knockout format with all games played at the Neepawa Curling Club. The draw times are scheduled for 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Saturday, December 7th and Sunday, December 8th. The full listing of draws is available online at https://crowmanitoba.org/scoreboard/number/19579/draws. While there will be live score updates available online, spectators are welcome to come down to the Neepawa Curling Club and watch the action live. The canteen will be open for lunch, while the lounge will be open all day. And a festive morning for mums. At the recent session of Mums Morning Out held at Neepawa's Art Forward, the mums in attendance had some hands-on crafting time to get them into the seasonal spirit. Those in attendance each made a decorative wreath of their own while their kids had supervised playtime in the adjacent room. Pictured above, mums in the process of making their wreaths, and below, all finished. The group poses for a photo with their completed wreaths. And don't forget the Neepawa Rotary Club online auction, December 6th to 12th. There is a complete list of, it appears to be 152 different items up for bids. So check out online and check out the website neepawarotary.weebly.com/. And Highland Dance Exams Results by Crystal Scott from Expressive Dance. Medal tests were held on Thursday, November 28th, 2024 at Expressive Dance with Crystal Studio in Minnedosa. Scottish Dance Teachers Alliance, SDTA, examiner Jennifer Worthen traveled from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia to test the dancers. 26 of Crystal Scott's Highland dancers completed a total of 69 exams. Some exams included 4 dances as well as demonstrating technique. Many dancers completed 1 up to 6 exams each. There were Highland dance exams, Scottish nationals, sailor's hornpipe, and choreographies. The marking system is as follows. Dance stars up to preliminary receive a pass. Pre-bronze up to award 6 receive pass, pass plus, commended, commended plus, and highly commended. Several dancers received commended plus and highly commended for their hard work. Everyone was successful with their exams and they'll receive certificates and medals at a later date. Crystal is so proud of her dancers as they continue to set goals and strive to keep improving. And pictured are some of those who underwent the recent dance exams via Expressive Dance with Crystal and the Minnedosa Scottish Dance Teachers Alliance. Congratulations. And Looking Back by Casper Warehan. 125 years ago, December 1899. A horse blanket left at Davidson's elevator in town on September 30th was taken away by someone to whom it did not belong. Whoever took it is requested to return it to the same place. A change was made last week in the business heretofore carried on by Stevenson and Clare, that firm having sold out entirely to the new firm to be known as Fisher and Stevenson. The members of this new firm are Messrs. J.T. Fisher, a gentleman of wide experience in trade at Russell and other places, and John Stevenson, one of the most popular young men of Neepawa. This new firm should be able to hold the large trade built up by their predecessors, especially as Mr. W.W. Stevenson, who was the chief partner in the late firm, will take a prominent part in the store management in the future as in the past. And 100 years ago, December 5th, 1924, the Black Minorca demonstration announced for Wednesday evening next in Parrott's barbershop is anteponed to Tuesday evening so as to avoid conflict with another event. Note, as Neepawa once had fowl showing contests, it may be accurate to assume that this is in relation to a demonstration of Black Minorca chickens, which originated in the Mediterranean island of Minorca. 75 years ago, December 1st, 1949. Last Thursday was a time for jubilation at the Canadian Industries Limited Neepawa Salt Works. At midnight, plant personnel gathered around the clock to check off the 1,167th accident-free day, which meant that they had qualified for the President's Prize. The last time accident at the plant occurred, September 14, 1946, when a block of ice salt fell on a loader's face, requiring 1 day's absence. A hockey player who was knocked about with several Canadian and American teams has been appointed the 1949-50 coach of the Neepawa Intermediates. He is Arnie Wood, 200-pound wingman whose home is Miami. Newdale. Damage estimated at $70,000 was caused Wednesday when a fire destroyed a store and garage in Newdale, about 60 miles west of Neepawa. Loss of approximately $50,000 in stock and property was suffered by J.S. Reed, owner of the general store, and another $20,000 by Wilfred Narosky, proprietor of the garage. Both are partially covered by insurance. Combined efforts of the Minnedosa and Newdale fire departments brought a blaze under control. A stock of firearm ammunition exploded in the general store during the blaze, but no one was injured. Mentmore. Honors have been coming thick and fast recently for a young member of the Mentmore Junior Swine Club. Latest honor for 17-year-old Don Conrad was a recent election to the presidency of the Junior Council of Boys and Girls Work for Canada. He was elected while attending the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair in Toronto, where he was participating in swine judging competitions in partnership with fellow Mentmore Club member Ken Hawken. And 50 years ago, December 5th, 1974, and pictured from that is the annual father-son contest between teams in the Tom Thumb League, saw a clash of oldsters and youngsters around this time in 74. Pictured above is one of the teams that played, the Blackhawks. The two other teams were the Canadians and the Bruins. The youngsters swept the oldsters in the competition, taking home the victory for all 3 games. And continuing with 1974, Dave Bennett, a vice principal at Neepawa Area Collegiate Institute, and his family will soon leave to spend a year in Hamilton, Australia. Mr. Bennett is one of 3 Manitobans who will participate in an international teacher exchange with the Australian state of Victoria. Plumas. Plumas-born Jim Orchowski was honored recently by admission to the partnership of Winnipeg-based Smith Carter Partners, an integrated practice of architects, engineers, and planners. Last Tuesday, November 26, marked the first anniversary of the Corona Hotel with Ed and Shirley Dandino. The first 50 ladies received rose corsages. Entertainment was provided by the hotel guys. The official opening of the McCreary housing units took place Tuesday, November 26 at 3 p.m. An open meeting to discuss the needs of the hearing-impaired child in the classroom will be held December 10th, 7 p.m. at Hazel M. Kellington School. And 20 years ago, December 6, 2004, the executive director of the College of Family Physicians in Canada says waiting times won't shorten until the country deals with a shortage of family doctors. And a disclaimer, the information gathered and used each week in Looking Back feature is directly taken from the original print copy of the Neepawa Press and Neepawa Banner newspapers. Any errors or omissions from the stories, factual or otherwise, are the result of the original print and not the responsibility of the archivist for the current version of the Neepawa Banner and Press. And the theater ad down here. Alien Thunder was the film up for showing at Neepawa's Roxy Theatre on December 8th in 1974. A relentless pursuer pitted against fierce tribal pride as Canada's vast western plains resound to the clash of alien thunder, and it starred Donald Sutherland. And finally, don't forget about our Kids Scoop. This week we're featuring gifts from the heart, not the wallet. Free gifts that you can provide for people. The gift of time, a gift from the heart, the thought, the gift of time again. So helping out, it's a good thing for the kids to check out and take part in the word searches and the contests. And that concludes the Neepawa Banner Press for Friday, December 6, 2024. I hope you enjoyed.